It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period. As most of you know, those are the opening lines of the novel A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. It was published over 160 years ago in 1859. Yesterday, when I got the invitation to serve as a replacement speaker today, my wife Sandy immediately insisted that I open my talk with those lines. Because they'd been haunting her all week. When she presented the idea to me, I agreed it made sense. This is the worst of times. The pandemic, social distancing, wearing masks, businesses closing, growing unemployment, record levels of evictions, protests in the streets. But at the same time, we're in the midst of the best of times. There are technological advances making our lives easier. Medical science is performing miracles. This week I learned that 3 of my friends back in California just had heart attacks and lived because they got to 911 help in time. My older son just had triple bypass heart surgery. When they opened his chest, they discovered that they had to replace a damaged valve in his heart. Basically, he now has a rebuilt heart. 30 years ago, they all would have wound up dead. Here in my chest, I now have a pacemaker defibrillator device because because my heart would forget to beat sometimes. It would just sit up and stay. So they decided that I needed a machine to help keep it on pace. And the defibrillator is because it might have a tendency to go into fibrillation and stop and just make noise and not really do anything. So when they installed it, the doctor says, "Now you're going to have a hard time dying." Yes, it is the best of times because science is slowly catching up with spirit. Spiritual masters have been telling us for centuries that we are all one. Science has finally discovered that there is no separation between anything. We're all part of the same field of energy. Spiritual masters have been telling us for centuries that there's only one mind. Scientists are beginning to discover that consciousness is the basic nature of being. All things in their most basic state are consciousness. All things are created from and consist of universal consciousness. One mind, infinite intelligence. But we were already there, right? Spiritualist principle number 1. We believe in infinite intelligence. Spiritualist principle number 2. We believe that the phenomena of nature, both physical and spiritual, are the expression of infinite intelligence. And finally, this is the best of times because science is grudgingly being dragged into the realization that there is life after death. Excuse me a moment, I forgot my book. I'm currently reading this book. The title of this book is The Afterlife Experiments by Dr. Gary E. Schwartz, professor of psychology, psychiatry, neurology, medicine, and surgery at the University of Arizona. He's also the director of Human Energy Systems Laboratory in the university. Dr. Schwartz and his colleague, Dr. Linda G. Russig, conducted a series of experiments with certified mediums to explore the possibility of communication with dead people. The experiments were heavily controlled. The mediums never saw the person they were reading, so there were no physical clues to let them know when they were right. Surprisingly, for the scientists at least, the mediums achieved success rates as high as 90%. In his preface to the book, Dr. Schwartz says, "But does this all mean the mediums are actually getting information from the departed? It seems unlikely. It contradicts accepted science. Yet, we have been unable to find any other convincing explanation for the totality of the findings. And as you will discover, many of the readings in these pages have an accuracy rate as high as 90%. Scientists and non-scientists alike are experiencing a test of faith. In this case, whether they can put our belief in the scientific method itself. Because if we are to put our faith in the scientific method and trust what the data reveal, we are led to the hypothesis that the universe is more wondrous than imagined in our wildest flights of fancy. The universe is more wondrous than imagined in our wildest flights of fancy. Again, we were already there. Spiritualist principle number 4. We affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continue after the change called death. Spiritualist principle number 5. We affirm that communication with the so-called dead is a fact, scientifically proven by the phenomena of spiritualism. Worst of times? Best of times? I claim that we're in the best of times because we have always been in a state of faith when it comes to our spiritual beliefs. For we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. But it's always been a state of faith, a truly held belief, yes, proven to ourselves, within ourselves, yes, but not so much in the outside world. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. But now, we are in the midst of a rise in consciousness that is not just internal, not just within our minds and hearts, but before the eyes of the world. Now, our faith is being rewarded with validation by the most powerful religion in the world, science. My YouTube channel is entitled Arise, A-R-R-I-S-E. Above rationality and reason is something else. The wall separating science and spirituality has been breached. We are now at the beginning of revelations that will blow the minds of all those who have refused to believe, all those who have been afraid to believe the truth. We are, each and every one of us, the children of God. We are, each and every one of us, individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. Because of that truth, we have access to power we have only dreamed about. And as we learn to go within and actually connect with our higher selves, we can learn to change our lives. We can rise above the physical discomforts we are experiencing in this, the worst of times. We are on the brink of accessing spiritual reality with faith and knowledge and power. We are on the brink of rising into the spiritual reality that is above physical reality. Is this the worst of times? Yes, I will admit that this time is stressful, this time is frightening. But answer me this: do we really make progress during the best of times? Do we really pull ourselves together to overcome when things are good, when we are comfortable? Or do we say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Or do we sit on our laurels and enjoy the spoils of the moment and leave the real work until tomorrow? Mañana, mañana, mañana is good enough for me. Humans don't make progress until they're under stress. It's only when something isn't working that they begin to seek a better way. So the best of times and the worst of times are inextricably linked to one another. They cannot exist one without the other. It is like a piston in a car engine. It must go up and down in order for the car to move forward. So it is our own consciousness that put us here, and it is our own consciousness that will get us out of this and into a higher level of expression. So let us acknowledge the current state of the world and then step back from it. Remember, our loved ones who passed before us have already shown us that spirit is real and spirit can transcend the physical. And now science affirms that what we already know is true. So let us recognize that the darkness, confusion, and anger of the world exist, yes, but then let us rise above it. Let us refuse to be hypnotized by the media and the hype. Let us refuse to be hypnotized by the colorful presentations and the shiny objects. Instead, let us go deep within ourselves. Let us go deep and merge with the spirit that dwells within. The spirit that we all know is there. And there, in that peace that passes understanding, let us tap into the joy and peace and love and health that awaits us there. When we make that connection and surrender to the spirit within, our light will come alive and we'll become magnets for good. When our world rises, then others will see and be attracted to the joy that we already know, and they will come too. The world must change. The world must elevate in consciousness. But it's not going to change if we run around shouting, "You must change, you must change, you must change." It ain't going to happen that way. No, the world around us will elevate when the light of spirit begins to glow within each and every one of us. And when that happens, the vision of our light will be impossible to ignore. And our light will ignite the light of others around us. And the others around us, their light will light the light of others around them. And then their light will light the light of others around them. And their light will light the light of others around them. And their light will light the light of others around them. We are the warriors of spirit. And as spiritual warriors, we have the power to change the world. Now is the time to use it.